getting my equipment charged up and everything ready today for another episode. And I think today we're going to talk a little bit about One True Love. It's a graphic novel. Get into a little bit about what that is, what it's about, and maybe we'll end with a little bit of an art tutorial. We'll have to see. Hey guys, welcome back. I finished doing laundry. We did the obligatory Froyo run, and I'm back for another video. Now, if you saw the last video, you know that I received the book plates for One True Love, and I've signed all 60 of them. They'll be going back to Mario to be united with the print copies of the book when those go out to the backers. For those of you who aren't familiar, though, One True Love is a 104-page, basically black and white, like a film noir on paper, graphic novel, about crime. It follows the adventures of Peter and Paul, two guys who have heisted the heisters in Las Vegas, heading west to meet up with their B-list movie actor, childhood friend Matthew Delfino in Hollywood. They get to stay in his rented mansion, which is our sort of composite of the famous Sowden House in LA. If you've ever seen Chinatown, you've seen this house. If you're familiar at all with the Black Dahlia murder, not necessarily where the Black Dahlia's body was found, but where it has been posited that she might have actually met her end. The Sowden House is one of these kind of great, just iconic pieces of architecture. I think Frank Lloyd Wright designed it. Anyway, before we get on that digression, I'm using this, though, as a segue into today's tutorial. There's a key concept, quite literally a key concept that I want to talk to you about. And this is something that I cover with my beginning drawing students literally every semester, usually fairly early on, because this is a way of kind of codifying your own visual language, and it's a way of adding clarity and intention to the drawings that you're going to make. What's great about it is you don't have to be an amazing artist to make use of this concept. You can literally draw stick figures. You can still use this. However, if that's the point that you're at, just drawing stick figures, it's not necessarily going to make you a better artist, but it is going to make you a more clear and intentional one. So let's jump into that. And then when we're done, what I'll do is we'll circle back, and I'd like to show you how I've used this exact same concept in my professional work for One True Love. So for this tutorial, what we're going to create is something not unlike the key on a map. This is why I call this a key technique. You are creating a visual key to the contents of your drawing. For this one, I'm doing it in advance. You kind of see the little boxes that I'm creating here. This, I would say, is optional, so long as you can keep track of the kinds of surface textures and ideas that you are basically abstracting into line. In this case, I'm using pen and ink, and I think that this idea is very well suited to pen and ink, where you might be doing cross-hatching, or different kinds of techniques with the pen. If you're using pencil, if you're using paint, this really can apply to anything. It's just a way to keep the visual information sort of organized and codified in a way that will make things clearer to your viewer when they're looking at your drawing. It makes it easier to differentiate the scene itself. So in this case, what I'm going to be drawing is just a little tableau of a sailboat out on a lake. We'll be able to see a little bit of foreground, and we're going to see some forested hillside in the background. So in advance here, what I've done is I've codified my water as these kind of horizontal, dark, organic shapes. My trees look more like a series of overlapping EKG readings. My sand is basically just stippling with the odd oval drawn in for a pebble. And then I've got some spiky shapes and corn dogs for my tules and cattails. So you can see it kind of coming in here. I'm putting in my frame. I'm going to put in my horizon line first. Notice I'm putting it above the middle so it doesn't risk creating a bisected composition. I've got the sailboat in there to kind of anchor things down as my focal point, and then I'm putting in the overall shape and kind of some of the directional cues of my forested hillsides. But again, this is, we're working with abstraction. What we're doing is trying to convey a three-dimensional space on a two-dimensional surface. Even if you are involved in more photorealistic drawing that is indistinguishable from, say, a black and white photograph, like the pencil drawings of Dylan Eakin, it's still an act of abstraction because of that conversion from 3D space to 2D 2D surface. So now you see my water texture going in here, keeping it very similar to the key, these sort of interlocking kind of jagged black shapes. I've added a little bit of reflection of the sailboat to further anchor it, give it a little bit more visual weight in the composition. And composition is something that we'll be talking about a ton on this channel. I don't know that there's any magic secret to better drawing, but if there is, I think composition and dedicating yourself to creating better composition is the closest thing to a magic secret in better drawing. Like I said, this doesn't require that you be an amazing artist at all. This is not an amazing drawing, but what I would say that it is a clean and organized one. As you can see here, I've got all my visual information sort of codified, and then I've applied it within the frame. So you get why I call it a key concept now, right? Making a map key to identify the different moving parts of your drawing, to contrast one against the other and make it clear that, oh, these were trees, this was sand, this was a sailboat, this was water. I did something very, very similar in One True Love, which is comprised of basically inked line art and then black and white or grayscale tones. And the way that I work this in One True Love is, rather than paint everything with the same texture and brush, I varied those textures and brushes. So when it came to doing like an interior wall, for instance, I would bring in the spray paint brush and I would just lather that spray paint in. And then to lighten it back up, I would change my eraser brush to be the Nico roller. And I'd lower the opacity, or with an eraser that amounts to lowering the pressure. So I'm not erasing as much of the painted material in a single pass. And I would swipe through it. So I've got that spray paint texture plus this sort of lightened Nico roller texture pasted over the top. Makes for some really cool, very grungy looking walls in some cases. It gives you that effect of not necessarily like high key light or soft diffuse light, but somewhere kind of in the middle, which lends to the noir atmosphere. When it came to doing the characters, very often I would use my Spectra or Tamar brushes. And if you're familiar with Procreate, that's what I'm pulling from. These are just preset brushes that come with Procreate. I'm not using anything extra. I don't really make my own brushes, at least not yet. So I like to play with the ones that are there. The only other one is when it came to doing the actual skin and flesh tones and textures of the characters, is using the much softer and more pliable gouache brush, which if you look through each of these pages, you can see it's, in a lot of cases, it's very subtle, but I had my own kind of texture key going and thinking, okay, Spectra brush equals clothing, Tamar brush equals denim jeans specifically, or stone textures. Anytime I had like poured concrete, I might use the Tamar brush, but then I might lighten that up with that Nico roller eraser as well. Walls, very often I would use the Nico roller, the spray paint brush, but it's, again, this exact same concept that we've just covered. I covered it very explicitly as far as the drawing goes, where you've got, this is water, these are trees, this is sand, these are tules and cattails. It's a, very, very clear and concise kind of visual language. But what I'm getting at is that this has a lot of subtlety to it as well. And I think if you were to employ this in your drawings, you're going to see say like a massive improvement in the overall quality of the work, but you're going to see leaps and bounds in your overall clarity. Thanks again for joining us. So glad you could make it back. I'm going to be back again with more tutorials, going to talk more about current projects going on. I've got the second issue of Thistle on my my drawing board right now. Looking forward to the second issue of Old Devils. If you saw, the first issue came out earlier this year from Matthew Wilding at Sequential Decay. I'm going to have copies of that available, signed. I'm the only person who has copies signed by both the writer and the artist, so be on the lookout for that. And the only real way to do that, follow me on social media, at Chicapedia, on X, on Blue Sky, on Instagram, Facebook, not really on Facebook anymore, Threads, and then of course here, hit the subscribe button, hit like, set up notifications, and we will be back very soon with more visual storytelling content.